Hi, fourth grade. I am reading The Wild Rowboat Escapes again, starting on chapter 62, The Showdown. The Showdown. Daybreak in the foothills, the thick gray fog of everywhere. With such poor visibility, the travelers relied on their other senses. They smelled salty air, they felt sandy soil, they heard seagulls screeching and waves breaking. And then they heard the long, low note of a ship's horn. Somewhere in the distance, hidden by the fog, was an ocean. As if to answer the ship, there came another long, low note, but it wasn't a horn. It was a howl. A wolf was following our friends. Oh no. Bright Bill beat his wings and squawked, "Mama, run!" Roz ran downhill, deeper into the gloom, her feet stomped and the sandy soil leaving behind a trail of footprints. There were no time to hide her tracks, and just kept running. Blurry, shaped, faded in and out of the fog, and her eyes darted around to see if the rocks and bushes were wolves. But the robot would have watched where she was going. She slipped and thumped into the sand, and before she could get up, Shadow was on top of her. The wolf was heavy and strong, and he pinned Roz to the ground and locked his teeth into her tilbot. At last, he caught his prey. Violently, wildly, he thrashed, and the robot was from side to side. Roz tried to squirm free, but Shadow's grip was tight, and there was only one thing to do. She reached down beside the wolf's snarling jaws and fumbled with the buckle, and suddenly she was loose. Shadow staggered backward, the belt dangling from his mouth as Roz stomped away. Bright Bill had been circling ahead this whole time, and now he squawked desperate warnings to his mother. "Look out for those rocks! Shadow is gaining on you! There are buildings ahead!" Roz burst through the row of hedges and onto the main street of the seaside village. It was still early, and it was still foggy, and Roz was halfway through the village before anyone saw her. A man had just left for his morning walk when the robot and the wolf came galloping down the street. The man decided to walk, could wait, and hurried back inside. Shadow swiped Roz's heels, but the robot leaped away. She soared over to the house and landed on the other side. The wolf dashed around the yard, only to see her leaping away once more. This time Roz landed in a shallow water. Waves gently sloshed against her ankles. The robot backed into the ocean up to her waist and then automatically stopped. Her survival instincts wouldn't let her go any farther. "There's nowhere left to run," Shadow growled as he prowled onto the beach. "Either fight or swim." Roz was trapped. Her body lurched forward and backward as her computer brain struggled to find escape. And then Bright Bill came to her rescue. "This way, Mama!" Roz didn't hesitate. She launched herself up to the shallows, toward her son's voice, salt water steaming off her body. She soared through the air, and then her feet pounded the sand in Bright Bill, who was perched atop the old robot. By the time Shadow arrived, our friends were rowing away from the shore. The wolf's face twisted with rage, and he howled from the water's edge. "You made a fool of me, Roz. My pack and my mate have left me. Now I'm just worthless lone wolf. All because of you!" Roz felt sorry for Shadow, but she never meant for any of this to happen. But she had her own troubles. The robot's greatest fear was deep water, and now she was paddling through the waves and out to sea. Chapter 63. The sun was shining, the fog was thinning, the robot was rowing. Roz was no thief, and she didn't like that old robot, but judging from its appearance, it was abandoned years ago. She hoped it wouldn't be missed. Anyone who's rowed one of those boats knows you're supposed to face backward, and that can make it tough to see where you're going. This wasn't a problem for Roz. However, she started off rowing normally, and after several strokes of oars, her head spun around until she was facing forward. And what she saw was a blue sky and dark waves and sliver of green and the horizon. "We're in the bay," said Bright Bill, swooping down in the boat. To the north and distance was a coastline. To the east was open water. To the west was a seaport, and to the south was a village and a wolf. It seemed the travelers had no choice but to cross the bay. Luckily, Roz could row long and fast. Brightbill settled in for the ride, and the rowboat's mechanical muscles started pumping. She pulled and pulled and pulled on the oars, and the rowboat glided through the waves. Roz was nervous. Time and again, Rowboat's survival instincts had stopped her from going into the deep water. Now, an old rowboat that was separated her from the murky depths. She couldn't wait to feel solid ground beneath her feet again. As she rowed deeper into the bay, the waves got larger and rougher. Gigantic swells of water rolled into the ocean and started tossing the boat around like a toy. The waves finally became too much for Brightbill. He spread his wings. He lifted up on the breeze, and he anxiously looked up at the choppy surf ahead. "Row faster," he squawked. "I don't know how much more the boat can take." Roz tried to power through. She rowed faster, faster, until the boat was skimming across the water. Too fast. The left oar snapped. The right, and suddenly the boat had mercy of the waves. "Hold on, Mama," cried Goose. "Here comes a big one." There you go. The rowboat was pulled on the side of the towering wall on the water. It teetered at the top, and then the boat went crashing down to the other side, and it was with such force that the whole thing splintered apart. Roz felt water surging up around her. She clung to the debris, kicked her legs. She couldn't stay afloat for long. The rowboat began to sink. The Goose floated above. The ocean rolled and sloshed. And then there was a sudden burst of air from somewhere nearby. Brightbill looked toward the noise, but saw only sea spray drifting on the breeze. And when he looked back to his mother, she was dipping below the surface. "What can I do, Mama?" Brightbill cried into the air. "Tell me what to do." "There's nothing more you can do," came Roz's gargling voice. "I'm sorry." The young Goose could only watch as the ocean dragged the rowboat down, down, down. Oh no. Will she survive? Will she get through this? Chapter 64. The Sea Creature. Brightbill hovered on the wind and watched his poor mother sinking into the depths. He could still see her body sparkling bright against the darkness, but she was fading fast. The Goose closing his eyes, hoping this was also bad dream. He heard the distant horns of the ships by the seaport. He heard the buoys clanging in the harbor. He heard the ocean waves churning and frothing, and louder and louder and louder and louder. The Goose opened his eyes and saw the ocean bulging upward. The giant sea creature was rising from the deep. What is it? It breached the surface. It sent waves rolling away. The creature had a large mouth and long fins and a wide back that curved down into the water. What kind of animal is it? What's your guess? There was a loud burst. A mist shot up from the blowhole. Oh, do you have a guess now? As you might have guessed, reader, the crying creature was a whale. More of the whale emerged from the darkness until something sparkled in the sunlight. It was Roz. She was sprawled across the whale's back, wet, limp, and lifeless. Oh no. I hope you enjoyed today's reading. Go ahead and check Google Classroom for the questions today and go ahead and answer them.